And like we always talk about, the whole circles of control thing was a real moment I took control of my mindset.
Dr. Octavius in Spider-Man has all these tubes plugged into him while he's manifesting his 8 legs or whatever.
But it's who do you look at? Talked about role models. You talked about an aspiring role model in your life, Ryan.
If you can see the good in people and you're a good judge of character, it doesn't matter if realistically they're real or fake.
There's used to be this thing called paperwork. You've probably not heard of it. I like to refer to it that I'm a buffet learner. So I take a bit of this and a bit of this and a bit of this.
What is the difference between that person and the fictional person you see in a TV show? Inspiration Nation, hello. Welcome back to another week on the podcast.
No. There's no need for this, Ryan. I am back again.
Oh, here he is.
Inspiration Nation, hello. Lee Kemp here, triumphantly back for another week on the podcast. I would say back with my good friends Ryan Boniface and Joseph Noya, but we're still a man down this week. There is no Joe for us. Sending out love, Joe. Hope you are doing well this week, and I will try and limp through this with Ryan Boniface this week.
Yeah. I'm the most consistent person here.
That is true. That is very true. I have to give you that. How are you doing this week, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, I'm good. Thanks for doing a two-man show the last couple of weeks, filling in for my sabbatical. Missed the triumphant 100th episode. It's been a good couple of weeks on the podcast. Everyone out there, we thank you as always for listening and downloading and watching through whatever way you are getting the podcast. Don't forget to check us out on social media at Listen to IN, Listen TOIN. Joe, of course, is across all platforms. Just put Jose Noya, Jose Noya, Inspiration Nation into any search engine, and you will get lots and lots of Joe. And of course, check us out on YouTube. Again, Jose Noya, Inspiration Nation. So, this is normally where I'd say, Joe, what we're going to talk about this week, but he's not here. So I'm going to come up with a subject instead, which is a little bit of a homage to our good friend, Joseph. And this week, I want to talk about why coaching works. We've both had the benefit, Ryan and different guises, of going through coaching. It's obviously what Joe does. It's been a little while since I've said it's his bread and butter, but it is his bread and butter and it's what he loves to do. And I genuinely don't think that I would be doing the job I'm doing now or be the person I am now or be able to support people in the way I support them without the support I've had directly and indirectly through coaching. And I was going to mix this up. So I think there's a little bit touching on coaching specifically, but also about, I suppose, the benefit of mentorship and having mentors. Because really, when you're in that sort of relationship, that is a coaching thing. That's where you're kind of learning from the benefit of what someone's been through. And I think in my head, as I was formulating, the two of those things overlap a little bit. So I'll start with you, first of all. What are your thoughts, particularly of what you've benefited from having kind of direct or indirect coaching from people?
I think as a generalization, I think people see it in different ways. I haven't had like a formal coaching session where somebody specifically sat down and coached me on something. If I have, it hasn't been for a long time. And I haven't had any formal like mentors as well. However, that doesn't mean to say that I haven't benefited indirectly from people that I spend time around. And I think that's a really important way of building yourself up. If you can find sense in the little things that people do and kind of answer your own questions in your head about it, then theoretically you're being coached on it. Everything you do is a lesson, isn't it? So I think every kind of work every bit of work you submit would be a lesson. If you're doing a bit of work and you anticipate that you think, oh, they're not, my boss or whoever isn't going to necessarily like this, then you're already coaching yourself indirectly from what you think their response is going to be to change what you're doing. So I think I'm quite good at picking up on the little things that I would suggest people would have. And that just comes from, I think, being empathetic to how somebody would see my work or something I've done.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much where my main head's at with it.
That's a good view as well, where you said about looking at it from a different perspective and how someone would see it. Because I think that's the important bit that helps with coaching, quite often Joe will say, and I've said it a few times as well, sometimes you think what someone else would say to you when you're going through a certain situation, and that's where you can really see it from that perspective and put it back on yourself. I mean, Joe, the first time I really had something I think was, spoke about it lots of ways, but one time that really sticks out to me, and it's the first time Joe did something for me. So before Inspiration Nation was a thing, before we were doing anything formal in this way together, we were working together, and I was really struggling at the time. I've talked about this, so some of the early podcasts back in the archive probably talk about this, but I was just not in a good place mentally with things, just feeling a bit down and depressed and stuff. And Joe offered to sit down with me and have a talk. And he sat me down. We went in a room, and he got me. He asked me lots of questions, open questions, and got me to plot out like a map of my life. So what's going on? What's important to me? Where are my stresses coming from? Which is a really, really good exercise. I found it the document actually we did the other day because I was clearing out my laptop. So his first announcement on the podcast is, as is our celebrated fourth member of the podcast, my grungy old laptop that was on its last legs has finally gone away and has been replaced by a new one. So when I was clearing out God knows how many years worth of documents, I actually found the thing that we did together, which was really interesting to see about the things that are important then. But what Joe got me to see was that everything was centered on one thing. So when that one thing wasn't going well, that was it. I had nothing else to fall back on. And he actually got me to plot out several different things I had going on that I was interested in, or I wanted to focus on, or make sure I dedicate a bit of time to, so that when one was going well and one wasn't, they kind of balanced each other out.
Yeah.
Which was a really, really good exercise and quite a big turning point for me, which is why I think I mention it, because I think since then that really put me down a certain path where I was a bit more balanced. I changed my outlook on things. And like we always talk about, the whole circles of control thing was a real moment I took control of my mindset and how I was feeling. And that's something Joe did for a coaching session with me. And I've seen him do similar things with umpteen other people. Again, when we used to work together, there's people who were really struggling in work. It affected their performance. Because they were down, a lot of their negative kind of actions created a negative perception of them. And there's a few people Joe really spent a lot of time with, and they, almost in front of my eyes turned into different people as, again, they started to take control. They started to look at things more positively. They started to be very aware of how other people saw them. And just through a number of sessions he did with these people, just completely transformed, I think, their outlook on life, which then, once they were looking at things more positively, once they were taking more positive actions for themselves, they were perceived as being a bit more positive, and the whole thing just snowballed. And I think that, for me, that's a good tangible example I'd give to people of the importance of coaching and why it's such an important thing to have.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of being able to fall back on other things when things aren't going well.
Yeah,
it might be different elements of your job, for example. Some of it may not be going well, but if you can identify the parts that are, then yeah, happy days. Or it might be something more personal to you, or your private life or social life. Not that many people have one of those at the minute, but but yeah, I think having things to fall back on to keep yourself kind of ticking over is a good way to make sure that you're moving forward, really.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing that I took from that. And it was, and I'll say it was work at the time. Not that it was dreadful or anything, but it was just quite stressful and quite full on. And that was my one thing.
Yeah.
So I'd be at work, have a really full on day. It's quite stressful. I go home and I think about work with what limited time I have left because of the hours I do and stuff. And I didn't really have anything else to put my energy into. So I just sat there and started thinking about the next day. And that was kind of all that was going on, and started to put in, stuff with hobbies, stuff with being more active with family and friends, just to give those outlets. And then, like you said, you can even break it down that within work, there's different facets to it. And sometimes when one is quite stressful or quite draining, it's quite good to have something else you can get a win in, so that you feel good over there that, yes, this is tough now, but I've achieved something here and this is good, and being able to balance those things out.
Yeah. Yeah, that
what
makes
people
sense.
call that work-life balance. And Joe said, I really liked it from his interview he did with Simon Squibb. Again, people go back, listen in the archives, that there is no work-life balance. There is just life, and work is a part of it. But what it doesn't mean is you don't solidly focus just on that one thing. So when it all, all your energy's in work, and then if something goes wrong, it all falls down, or all your energy's in a hobby over here and you don't focus on your work, just balancing it out in those little bite-sized things.
Yeah, definitely.
And I suppose the other strong bit, which is what Joe's done, and I think we talked about it. I heard you guys talking the last couple of episodes actually about the benefit of having people to bounce stuff off. More, I suppose, the mentorship than anything else, which again doesn't need to be formal, but it's who do you look at? Talked about role models. You talked about an aspiring role model in your life, Ryan. Sounds brilliant. I don't know,
Don't make me regret what I said.
How you'd ever live up to the standard this person sets.
Don't make me regret what I said. I think it's hard to use a different adjective other than idolize, but that isn't how it is. It's something that you can base a model off.
Yes, I was just going to say, is it more like modeling than anything else?
Yeah. So as I see it, I have me, and I have these kind of like Dr. Octavius in Spider-Man has all these tubes plugged into him while he's manifesting his 8 legs or whatever. And these tubes are all pumping different things into him or me, if you're going back to myself. And what I choose to turn on to plug into me is important to how I kind of develop myself. And there's been times throughout my life where I've gotten enough from one person that I can turn that tap off and then replace it with something else. But yeah, I think the last few years I've developed really strong relationships with people that are the right kind of people, which is something a lot of people tell you to do when you're growing up, is make friends with the right people and stick with the right crowds and don't do anything silly. And you think to yourself at the time, but all my mates are, they're sound, they're fine, they're perfect. What's the problem? But as you grow up, you realize that isn't necessarily the case. And having the right people around you of whatever, it could be a teacher, it could be your brother, your dad, your mum, or whoever, having those right people that you can look up to and that you can kind of model in a way how you feel you should act off of it until it becomes natural and you can bring your own tone to it. That's how I kind of see myself, seeing how I've developed myself as a person in that kind of aspect.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I was gonna reference there actually. Is that thing people always say, don't they? Like you said, as you're growing up, or just generally in life, is surround yourself with good people, surround yourself with people you can learn from. But and I think you articulated really well there, is what does that actually mean? How do you put that into practice? And it's what you're saying there, and it's what I've done and continue to do over the years, is I will see aspects of other people that I want to emulate. They do either, there might be a huge, it's like this person's in this job, how did they get there? I want to learn what they've done and how they've got there. Or someone just does something quite small. There's an interaction where they act in a certain way with someone and you see it and you're like, I really like the way they did that. I want to do that. And you just pull in all these bits, big and small, from all these people and add them into your makeup. So you're not, modeling a person and being like, in 5 years' time, that's who I want to be. But you see aspects of those people. And if you surround yourself with them and you interact with them and you talk with them and you're conscious of it, that stuff starts to become part of who you are as well.
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to, I think I mentioned this last week, it doesn't even have to be all real people. I think I mentioned like Harvey Specter last week or the week before.
You did.
But that's definitely one of the people that I plugged in as a tap and like turned on, is how his mannerisms work and how he was as a person and what his thought process was for a lot of things. That for me is a lot of based off of a lot of the things I do. I don't think it's insincere or irresponsible to base some things that you like on a non-fiction, on a fictional person and back on yourself, because these people have developed story arcs and character arcs, and these people are based a lot of the time on real kind of people. And if you if you can see the good in people and you're a good judge of character, it doesn't matter if realistically they're real or fake, does it? As long as they provide the right message and bring the right kind of positivity out of you, that role model can be a role model. It could be Postman Pat if you wanted it to be. Maybe not Dennis.
I'm not sure what I was going to say. I'm not sure where to go from Postman Pat.
Maybe not Dennis the Menace. That's more your time, I think.
Yeah, Dennis. When I was little. Apparently, I'm told that I used to love Postman Pat. I did used to like Dennis the Menace comics as well. I'd get one bought. There's my nan. She was great at that. So we're going on a car journey. So here's your comic to read for it. There's used to be this thing called Paper Eye. You've probably not heard of it, but it's like it's on your phone, but it's not on your phone. It's like on a piece of pulped wood.
Right, I see.
But what I do is I'd read it, and I read quite quick. And probably before we've even set off, I've read my comic front to back. And that was it. As a kid back then, I was out of entertainment then, couldn't go to another website. You don't know how tough I had it.
Wow.
Poor old Joe, he used to have to bash a hoop down the road with a stick. That was the only entertainment they had back then.
They had what do they call those bikes?
Penny farthings.
Penny farthing bikes.
I could see Joe on a penny farthing.
So could I, actually.
After all the kind stuff, Joe, we said to you about your coaching, which is amazing and genuinely did change my life, I hope you're enjoying all this banter now we're doing without you here, because that is what it's all about.
We can't always be nice and sincere.
It's not our MO. The fictional thing, though, Ryan, I think is a great reference. I do, like you said, it doesn't have to be a person you know or have met or directly get to interact with. So it could be someone famous that is real, an Elon Musk type of person, or even fictional, because behaviors are behaviors. And just because it's an acted out behavior doesn't mean you can't see how it works and take that on and make that part of your playbook. And I think that we've referenced it quite a lot of time with something you've got at your age that I definitely didn't have when I was your age, was that awareness of how I can shape my behaviors and I can learn how to do things a certain way people do and be open to taking all that stuff on board.
Yeah.
I like to refer to it that I'm a buffet learner. So I take a bit of this and a bit of this and a bit of this and a bit of this rather than stick to one key mantra, which I think is a less eloquent version of your Spider-Man tubes plugged in.
I come out with some really weird analogies on this podcast. I can't lie. If you listen back, there are some weird ones. But I think going back, I feel like people that are critical of my way of thinking would say, how can you see a role model in somebody that isn't real? Which I don't think is an unfair comment to make if you don't understand. But if you look at it this way, most young children, boys, whatever, girls, look up to a lot of footballers, or sports people, or I don't know, makeup vloggers on YouTube these days for girls, I guess, or whoever. If they never ever meet them, what is the difference between that person and the fictional person you see in a TV show? But what is the difference?
Absolutely, no, I agree completely.
There isn't. So I just think that my way of thinking there could be criticised on the fact that the person isn't actually real. So how can you base any kind of positive aspect off them? But I think just as a counter argument, it works with celebrities and that as well, or sports stars as well.
Is this a challenge that you've had before?
No, I just anticipate, again, I'm just probably been a bit empathetic to it and understanding that not everyone's going to agree with my or our way of thinking on it. So helping them ascertain an understanding as to why I think it's acceptable, I don't think is a bad idea.
And as well, you gave the lead in. There's something else I wanted to mention from this. So for me, when I was going back years, when I was first learning a lot of this stuff, and I had a couple of really good people who took me under their wing and really taught me, especially at the time, the art of leadership, getting people to buy into things, how you develop other people. And then what you do, as you're doing a lot of work environments, you have like your monthly catch-ups with people. So for people that were on my team at the time, I'd talk to them, get them to talk me through what they've been going through, and we debrief on it a little bit. And then actually I'd try and always give a point of reference. So I'd say, oh, something similar happened like that to me, and blah, 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 to talk through what we did. And actually I found for me that it really helped. It was almost like it was coaching me at the same time as coaching them by reinforcing a lot of this stuff in their head. And then as I developed more, I'd start to think how I could pass on everything I've been taught to get me to that stage to other people, which is a huge part of what my job is now. And it sounds like there you're almost in your head, you're starting to build up some of what are your playbook of things. So Harvey Specter and Dr. Octopus being two of them. And actually you're already rationalizing in your head how you'd explain that to someone else and make it clear. So kind of making that step where you're getting ready to pass on your learnings to other people as you're learning new things.
Yeah, I think where it's hard to explain it how I want to explain this without coming across as egotistical maybe, but growing up I was always a really clever kid, and I was always quite ahead of a lot of like my peers and stuff. So my brain tends to run at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Like I'll have worked, I don't know, a numerical sum out in my head while people are still doing it on calculators, or I'll know the answer to something before people have Googled it, just off of potluck or just having to know it. So because of that, I found that a lot of the time I've had to explain my thinking for a lot of things. Not because people are incapable of thinking the same thing, but because I got there a lot quicker maybe than what they did.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, I've spent a lot of my life having to rationalize and explain where my head's at. And I think that's potentially been one of my downfalls maybe, is that I expect people to have be on all the same brainwave as me all the time. And that obviously is never going to be the case. So I think the last couple of years especially is something that I've really developed and worked on, is that how can I understand how you, as a proverbial term, understand how you understand things better, so that I can adjust what I'm doing to match it, so that we come to the same conclusion. And that's something that I think I've done quite well with when I've had to provide feedback, or I've never actually been a formal coach for someone, but again, indirectly or from a leadership position to people that would be below me, if you like, they look up to you for that kind of thing, and they'll always ask you for help. And especially if you are delivering feedback on some work they've done, that is in essence coaching, and then helping them understand how they, if they need to, how they can improve it, or what they would like to see to be able to help them improve it in the future.
That's good. And I'm glad you said that, because that's what I wanted to kind of touch on next, is that importance of coaching really works for, it's worked for both of us. We've had, we've learned a lot from people indirectly, directly, conversations we've been having, looking at mentors and stuff. Hopefully everyone listening as well, either does already get the benefit from that, or be able to see the benefit and look for that more actively. But on the flip side of that is your impact on other people, because every interaction we have with people is a chance to support others. You can either lift them up or you can knock them down. And the more conscious you are, back to what is my resolution for this year about leaving everyone better from a conversation when they went into it, is that consciousness of how much you can be doing that with other people through all those indirect conversations, and how much happens. I mean, we don't talk directly about our own work stuff on here, but we've referenced, you're in a leadership position now at work, Ryan, so you get far more opportunities where that just becomes a part of your day to day. So that's really formalized in your head. But I dare say before you're even in that position, there would have been people, who'd ask you questions, think, oh, that was a good answer, I might go back to him if he's got someone else, and those relationships start to form. And I just think, for us, for everyone listening, for everyone watching, the more conscious you are of the ability you have to support and develop people through these interactions, the better those interactions can be. And if everyone's doing a bit of that, we all lift each other up together, which I know is a bit hippie and idealistic, but I always try and look at things like that as much as I can. Always try and look at what I can learn from people when I'm talking to them, but what is there that I can, help and support people with as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think Joe would ask if he was here, so I'll ask it for him. Have you been updating your diary?
I'd like to say, I'm looking for it right now. You saw me look off camera there, but I'm not even sure. Okay, hold on. Bear with me.
Because I know Joe would ask.
He would ask. oh, do you know what? It's on the shelf there. I was going to get up and get it, but then you'd see I'm wearing my scummy house trousers below my Inspiration Nation hoodie, so I won't walk over and get it.
I won't make you
the
do
writing down bit, I'm terrible. It's one of my things I'm not good at. I'm very good at doing. So when something needs doing, I will do it. I think we've referenced this in previous episodes as well. But on the either sitting there and planning every step out before I do it, or writing what I've done afterwards are the bits I'm not great with. I'm almost like, right, that's done. What's next? What's next? What's next? Within the job I do, there's a lot of reporting I have to do. And that's the bit of the job I don't like, but I push myself to do because it's important to do. I don't quite have that same pressure in my real life. So I do think about it, and I do look at it in terms of the interactions I have with people. And sometimes I'll even be like, oh, that was good. I should write that down in the diary. I've not wrote one thing in the diary yet. Don't tell Joe. Don't dob him into me.
I think as long as you're keeping a mental note, which it sounds as though I think you are, you can then draw on that yourself. Obviously, you'd have more examples to draw on if you wrote them down because you're bound to forget them. But I think the really important ones are the ones where like you really get a buzz or you really get a positive feeling after it, you're always going to remember that anyway. So I think that's pretty much what it's there for. Now that you're probably conscious of it, it'll work for you, I guess.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I do. I think it's definitely there in my mindset, and the action of getting the diary helps solidify it and make it real.
Yeah.
But I will try, and I even think about it when Joe says, just do it once a week, just once a week, Lee, write a couple of things in there. And I'm like, that's not that hard. I should be able to do that. So I will try, but not promise that it's going to get wrote down. But it's that, you know, in even the conversation today, it's obviously there quite present in my mindset about how things are. And, you know, not intending we go out and every conversation we have becomes some sort of coaching session and every single conversation is a chance to resolve a problem for someone. But quite a lot of the time, people are consciously or subconsciously reaching out for a bit of support or help or encouragement or acknowledgement. And that's the bit I think that we can all be quite conscious of in what we do. Make sure, you know, we've got genuine two-way conversations, not just one way. Yeah. And I think that back to what I want to coin the phrase, I think that's how coaching works. That's why it works. I think being open to receiving feedback and listening and developing and being, if someone challenges your behaviors, being able to take that in a genuine way rather than a confrontational way, that's what really makes it work. And people like Joe, people like what we're trying to do, no doubt people listening as well, that want to engage with people in that genuine way is how it works the other way as well.
Yeah.
I think oh, sorry, go on, mate.
I was going to say the world will always work in a positive format if people accept things as how they're interpreted, but that isn't obviously always the case. So it's important that if people don't feel that their message has gone across well, that they take the time to solidify what they mean, because it's really hard to articulate things sometimes.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And, you know, my inspiration for this is Joe. He's not here with us this week, but I say genuinely did send my life down a far more positive path. I've seen him do it for other people before. It absolutely works. It is what we talk about each and every week here, and why we're doing it is we do want to help, we do want to inspire, we do want to give a bit of encouragement to people. You know, Joe's out there doing his daily dose of inspiration every single day. Check him out again, social media, Jose Noya-Inspiration. We are weekly, of course, for your extended dose of inspiration at Listen to IN on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all the other ones. Can't even remember what they're called now. Spotify, that's one of them, isn't it? And of course on YouTube. And don't forget to check us out, InspirationNation.org.uk. Full details of the coaching service there, which this is by accident been a huge long advert for. Go on, have a look, 20-minute free session with Joe. He really does wonders. And of course, you can get your fabulous Inspiration Nation merchandise over there as well, or as Ryan likes to call it, the merch.
Nice.
Mug shot there for the camera. Don't know if you've got yours with you, Ryan, but mugs, hoodies like I'm wearing, t-shirts, there's some leggings, all sorts of Inspiration Nation stuff to fill your life with. Slightly odd doing a Joe-less one. Normally it's me that's dipping out and not being on a podcast, so different flavour for this week. Enjoyed this with you though, Ryan. Hopefully Joe is all well and will be back with us again next week.
Indeed.
Anything you want to cap off our coaching and mentoring session with before we wrap things up?
No, I think we've covered it off pretty well, mate, to be honest.
Excellent. We thank all you loyal listeners and watchers out there. Again, hit subscribe, podcast player on YouTube, leave us a review, leave some comments. It all helps get the message out there. We really, really do appreciate it. We will be back again next Tuesday. All that is left is for me to count us down and say 3, 2, 1. Inspiration Nation. Catch you guys later.
I really hope you enjoyed that video about why coaching works. Don't forget to check out our other podcast episodes right here. I think you'll really enjoy them, and also don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell because it'll tell you when another video goes live. So keep coaching, keep staying inspired. That's Inspiration Nation, and I'll see you there.